What is up, fam? Thank you so much for tuning in to So Real Sports Talk TV. Thank you for joining in this Monday. I actually am not sure if I'm live yet or not. There we go. We are in. Certainly having a little bit of technical difficulties, a little bit of a case of the Mondays and whatnot. But once again, thank you so much for tuning in to So Real Sports Talk. I am your host, So Real Sunil, and we're going to have a great show today. Maybe having some of your familiar friends jumping in for some little cameos. Maybe not. If not, we're still going to have a lot of fun. Just want to thank everybody for supporting the channel, everybody that subscribes, that likes. Thank you so much for doing that. Just wanted to get that out of the way. Hope everybody had a beautiful Father's Day. Hope everybody had a beautiful weekend overall. And back to the grind, baby. So let's talk about it. So, to start out, haven't heard too much about Deebo. Clearly, he was at mandatory minicamp. So just wanted to talk about what we can gauge from, I guess, the lack of news from Deebo. So is no news good news? In this case, I do believe it is. And the reason why is, obviously we saw a tumultuous offseason when it came to Deebo Samuels. There was a lot of media speculation. There was, the Instagram incident where he scrubbed his Instagram from everything 49er related. There was news about trade demands, money issues, and not wanting to play in San Francisco, wanting to play closer to home. Now, obviously, we didn't hear any of this specifically out of Deebo's mouth. We didn't hear any of this specifically out of John Lynch or Kyle Shanahan, but it was clearly the gray cloud over the 49ers offseason. Now, when it came time for the draft to come, there was a lot of speculation. Will they make a trade? The Jets had offered a pretty nice package. Some other teams had offered some pretty nice packages. However, the 49ers decided to pass on all of that, and rightfully so. I mean, Deebo is a player that is very hard to replace. He obviously had one of the greatest seasons for a wide receiver last season for the 49ers. And, if you can have him, you'd rather have him than not have him. And as we've gotten more and more into the offseason, you saw guys like Trent Williams speak to Deebo being a great teammate and him showing up for mandatory minicamp, showing, I guess, the progression and the evolution of his maturity. So I think this all points to a good situation for the 49ers. Another thing to really point out that I believe is a really good sign is you've seen receivers that are in the same situation as Deebo not handle the offseason the way that Deebo is. So, for example, the Washington Commanders have Terry McLaurin, who's in the same draft class as Deebo, not show up for mandatory minicamp. Same thing in Seattle with DK Metcalf, another person in Deebo's draft class, not showing up for mandatory minicamp. So we're noticing that, different receivers are handling it in a different way. I think the fact that Deebo is actually there, even though he's not necessarily playing, he's not on the field, the fact that he's shown up, is there with the team, going through the playbook, running drills on the sidelines, whatever it was that he was doing, I think is a really good sign. And from all indications, he's still doing a lot to stay in shape. He obviously started the workout page on Instagram. So you could tell he's really putting in the work to make sure that he's ready for the start of the regular season. And when you go into what the 49ers actually do when it comes to these extensions, that it doesn't necessarily happen till closer to when training camp begins. So everything seems like it's on the right timeline. I do hope that this deal gets done, sooner than later, just so that there's not any kind of anxiety when it comes to training camp. Because in reality, what we need to see is Deebo there for the start of mandatory training camp, clearly, to get these reps with Trey, because of all of the other receivers that Trey is going to be, really working with. Deebo is the only one that he hasn't been able to work with this offseason due to these contract negotiations. So I think no news is good news. I do believe that Deebo is going to be a 49er. The 49ers are going to give him the contract that he's looking for, or at least come to terms on a contract. Now, what does that contract look like? I believe it's going to be probably like a 4-year deal, maybe a 5-year deal. However, all the guarantees are going to be within the first 3 years. And the reason for that is there are some things that the 49ers do need to navigate. The first thing is Deebo is a little bit of an older receiver. I believe he's going to be either turning 26 or turning 27 going into the season. So, usually that's going to be the prime of a receiver's career. That 30-year mark, when a receiver turns 30, is usually when teams start to shy away from giving big money to those receivers, especially the way that Deebo plays. He obviously is somebody who is willing to go head on into contact to get, an extra yard here or there. So it is somebody whose just style of play might not be conducive to a very long career, which is why I had no qualms or worries about or any issue with Deebo really looking to get paid this contract. It might be the only contract that he gets for big money. So I could totally understand wanting to go out there and make sure that, your family's set up for life and, get the guarantees and the type of, peace of mind that your family's going to be taken care of, regardless of what happens in the future of his career. So I understand that. So that's one thing that the 49ers need to navigate, is how much of the guarantees, how long do you want to be tied to Deebo as far as guaranteed money and affect how it's going to affect the cap. The other thing that really needs to be paid attention to is the 49ers do have a bona fide potential star in Brandon Ayuk. Now, Brandon Ayuk is younger than Deebo. He also, I believe, in my opinion, is a better just pure receiver. I think Deebo right now is a better weapon, clearly with his ability to not only do well in the pass game, but also, turn into that wide back type position. So with Brandon Ayuk there, he has all of the makings, I believe, of a top 10 wide receiver. I think his relationship with Trey and Trey's ability to get the ball down the field, but better than a quarterback like Jimmy, I think is going to bode well for Brandon Ayuk as well. So the 49ers have a decision to make. Luckily for them, Brandon Ayuk was a first-round draft pick. They did trade up to get him, which means they do have the advantage of having the 5th-year option with him, which means that he will be in contract for another 2 years after this year, right? So he's going into his 3rd year. All indications and what most people think is he's going to have a breakout year this year. Then you have him his 4th year, extend him his 5th year, right? So if we're looking at Deebo, the 3 years, and the reason why I say 3 years of guaranteed money is because that also coincides with Trey Lance's contract. So Trey Lance is going into his 2nd year, also a first-round pick. So you get the benefit of the 5th-year option with him, which means you have him on the rookie scale for another 3 years after this year. So Deebo and needing to pay Trey Lance should coincide as far as the guaranteed money, or at least how it affects the cap. Then you have that really just 1 year where you have to decide, are we going to go with Deebo or are we going to go with Brandon Ayuk? And if we see Ayuk do the things that we expect him to be able to do with Trey Lance, that is going to be a very interesting question and a very interesting dilemma that the 49ers are going to have. Luckily, we don't have to worry about that for at least 2 years. These guys could be, 1A and 1B, depending on how they play for the next 2 years. And the 49ers will have, one of the best wide receiving duos in the league. But in that, 3rd year, and that 4th year, they're going to have to make a decision. Do we stick with Deebo or do we stick with Ayuk? And the reason why is it really isn't smart to be able to pay two wide receivers the amount of money that I think both are going to be wanting or be demanding in the wide receiver market, right? So, and that paired with the fact that it seems like the college players are developing a lot better at the wide receiver level, and that they're coming in and creating more of an impact than other positions. So it looks like the wide receiver position is going to turn closer to what the running back situation is, where you're obviously able to get in great talent immediately that can immediately make an impact on your team, which makes it harder to, or less likely, unless you're just a very elite player, to get big money on the back end, because you could be replaced with a rookie coming out of college. So those are some of the things that I think the team is navigating through right now. What the type of decision making that they're making. I don't think it's necessarily that they don't want to pay Deebo. I think it's just looking and forecasting in the future to see how well how they could get a contract that gives them the most options in the future to deal with some of these decisions that they're going to have to make. So we all know this is going to happen before training camp. They need to make sure that Deebo is there day one of training camp, so that him and Trey could start getting those reps. The team doesn't have to worry about any of these questions from the media as far as, do you feel like Deebo's going to be there? And it'll just be peace of mind for the team, coaching staff, and the faithful that, our best player on offense, our best offensive weapon, is there ready to work with the team. And I'm sure Deebo wants that as well. I'm sure he, knowing how he gets along with the team, and even his relationship with Trey, you could tell the excitement and energy that Deebo had on the field when Trey would make a great play on the field. You could tell that they have a bond there, and I'm sure he wants to be out there with his guys and his team. Anybody that's played team sports, it's really a family environment out there, especially when you've gone through the type of deep playoff runs that Deebo has done with a lot of these players. I'm sure he wants to be out there as well. So I look forward to that contract being signed ASAP. I think training camp usually is end of July. So hopefully in the second or third week of July, the 49ers could come to a deal with Deebo, so that everybody is under contract that we want to be there, and that we could just really focus on training camp as far as who is going to make the roster, especially some of these final roster spots. So that's the latest on Deebo, and my 2 cents on how I feel the situation is going. Make sure to comment on the video what you think is going to happen with Deebo. But I think most of us are on the same page. It's going to happen. It's a matter of when, not if kind of situation. But speaking about competitions in training camp. So earlier this week, I did a video speaking to the running back situation and the wide receiver situation, because there's some competition, obviously, for the final roster spot in the running back room as well as the wide receiver room. Another very, very interesting battle is going to be in the cornerback room. And this is a unique situation for the 49ers, because usually they don't have an abundance of riches when it comes to the cornerbacks, it's in the secondary. It's not necessarily a position that the 49ers have thrown, a lot of great assets in. They haven't drafted somebody with the first or second round, a corner in the first or second round at all through the Shanahan regime. And they've obviously made their biggest splash this offseason in signing a CB1 in Charvarius Ward. So that is obviously a way of deepening the cornerback room. However, the 49ers currently have 11 cornerbacks on the roster. And if they're going to carry over the same amount of players that they did last season, they're only going to be carrying over 6, right? And I don't really see why they would carry more than 6, just because they tend to keep the most amount of players at the defensive line because they have so much depth there. So I'm going to list off the corners that are on the roster right now and kind of give you my opinion of who might be the final 6. So we have Charvarius Ward, Emmanuel Mosley, Jason Verrett, Ambry Thomas, Samuel Womack, Darquez Denard, Tariq Castro-Fields, Dante Johnson, Diamador Lenore, Kadar Holman, and Quantrez Knight. Okay, so those are the 11 corners that are currently on the roster that are going to be going into training camp. Now, if you notice, there's more than 6 names on there that are familiar to the 49ers faithful and that are fan favorites. So the reality is one of the fan favorites on the team most likely isn't going to make the 53-man roster, which is a sad thing, but it is a business and you want to make sure you have the best players there on the field. So let's talk about it. So I think the locks. So I actually think there's 5 locks with the caveat. So the locks for me are Charvarius Ward, Emmanuel Mosley, Ambry Thomas, Samuel Womack, and Jason Verrett, right? And Jason Verrett is the caveat because if for some reason he isn't healthy, he might be somebody that they stash on the PUP list, which gives them an opportunity to bring in somebody else. But let's just assume that that Jason Verrett is going to come into training camp healthy. And the reason why I think that is because I think Kyle Shanahan has mentioned that he does have a chance to be healthy from day one of training camp, which obviously is a good sign. So Charvarius Ward, obviously CB1, Emmanuel Mosley and Ambry Thomas, I believe, are going to be fighting for CB2. I do think Mosley probably has the edge right now. Then Ambry Thomas, Jason Verrett, once he gets healthy, I think actually moves into CB1 and puts Charvarius Ward at CB2. But Jason Verrett makes out 4. Samuel Womack, obviously the 5th-round draft pick they drafted, has been showing a lot of good signs in the offseason so far. He's a lock. And then is the question mark. So we have Denard, Tariq Castro-Field, Dante Johnson, Diamador Lenore, Kadar Holman, Quantrez Knight. The last 2 names probably are just guys that may make the practice squad or, just be cut overall. But let's talk about the 4. Denard, Tariq Castro-Field, Dante Johnson, and Diamador Lenore. So Lenore obviously was drafted 5th round last year, showed some signs of being able to show some flashes last season, right? Last season training camp, the footage came out of him, playing well. He actually got onto the field quicker than Ambry Thomas did, even though Ambry was drafted higher than Diamador Lenore. But he's kind of fallen off after that. And you haven't really heard too much about him in a positive light since, the beginning of last year's training camp and, maybe the beginning of the season. So he's somebody who's definitely a question mark, and in my estimation, may not be somebody that makes the roster. So, and that's somebody I like. So that's kind of going to be sad to see. Tariq Castro-Fields obviously was a draft pick from this year. From indications, he hasn't been having the best offseason, is kind of, showing that there is a lot of room for growth for him. And in previous situations, he probably would have made the roster for the 49ers because they usually don't have this much talent in the cornerback room. But unfortunately, he got drafted to a team that actually put some emphasis on the cornerback room this offseason. And he might be a casualty of just not being good enough to make the final 6. The 2 that I'm very interested in is Darquez Denard and Dante Johnson. And the reason why I think the final roster spot is going to be between those 2. Obviously, Denard is somebody who came into the season at end of last season, and he actually had a decent amount of playing time for the little amount of time that he spent with the 49ers. the 49ers as far as the corners, the opportunity for somebody to start most likely is going to be at that slot slash nickel position. And that's what the position that the 49ers have used Denard last season and seem to be, pushing towards him this season as well. Somebody who Shanahan has discussed as far as enjoying his ability and, being able, seeing a lot enough out of him that, he has a chance to make the roster. Somebody that they are giving a lot of playing time at that slot position. So, does he show enough to be able to make the roster? Do they just keep him there because he is somebody who could specialize at that slot slash nickel cornerback? Possibly. And then the other guy is Dante Johnson. Now, Dante Johnson, I know, is somebody who, people are up and down on as far as the faithful. For me personally, I'm a big fan of Dante Johnson. I know he's not necessarily this elite talent that is going to be your cornerback one. But when you're talking about a depth piece, he is somebody that I think is very valuable to a team. One, he could play on special teams. So even if he isn't making it on the field as a corner, he's still somebody who could impact your team as far as playing special teams. So I think there's value to that. Two, he's like the utility player for the 49ers. Much like how Daniel Brunskill is for the 49ers on the offensive line, Dante Johnson is that same type of player for the secondary out of the cornerbacks, right? He's somebody who could play on the outside and, play well. He's somebody who could play slot and play well. He's somebody that could even move into safety and play well. And I think that utility and that ability to play multiple positions and play it at a very decent level, I think that's valuable to have on a team. He's somebody who has been with the 49ers for, some time. He always comes back on these one-year deals, but he's very hard to not keep on your team just because he works really, really hard. He is obviously a great athlete. And I think, every time he gets an opportunity, he's not necessarily a weakness. He's somebody that I think definitely benefits the roster. So in my estimation, that's probably somebody I would want to make the team. We got a special guest coming in. My guy, Wayne Breezy. My man, how are you doing this beautiful Monday, brother?
I'm doing good. Now, that's how you bring somebody out, bro. That's how you do it. I got to work on my entrances, man. That's how you do it, bro.
Bro, I don't have as cool of a name as you. It just flows off. It's just like, no, Wayne Breezy. Like, it's just too easy, bro.
So you're not thinking... Whenever I say your name, like the So Real, I already think like I'm in my Pharrell moment where Jason put the Pharrell for real, whatever. So I'm already in that moment whenever I bring you out. So that's why it's just mad cool, collected, man. What's going on, bro?
I love it, bro. Not too much, man. I love the get up, man. All orange out here, looking like Halloween, bro. I love it.
Hey, I gotta represent them. That's the only team I got left in the race, bro. Like it's the only team
left. I love it. I love it. But Breezy, you actually jumped in, and I'm really glad you jumped in at this point because it was when I wrote this question, it was something I really wanted to talk to you about. So, we last week we kind of discussed the running backs and the wide receivers as far as who we think is going to make the 53-man roster. Cornerback, though, is very is the same type of situation like the wide receivers. There's 5 guys that we're pretty sure are gonna make it. Who's gonna be the 6th? So I'm gonna list 4 guys. So the 5 guys I think are gonna make it. I don't know if you agree or disagree. It's Travaris Ward, Emmanuel Mosley, Jason Verrett, Ambry Thomas, and Samuel Womack. So those are the 5 that I think are locks to make it as far as the corners, right? Last year, the 49ers only carried 6. So that means that there's only 1 spot left. And there's 4 guys that I believe the faithful, are fan favorites and think that can make it. But only one of them, if we're sticking to who they carried last season, is going to make it. That's between Darqueze Dennard, Tariq Castro-Fields, Dante Johnson, and Diamador Lenore. So if you only had to pick one of those players to make it on the 53-man roster, out of those 4, Wayne, who are you bringing into the team?
That's a tough question because I feel like if I had to pick from a 49er standpoint, it would be Darqueze Dennard because he could play in the slot. and you're going to need, you know, a couple of guys that can line up in the slot. Whether you go with the young guy like in Samuel Womack, who might not start right away, you might want to start with the veteran in the slot like a Darquez Denard, who did play week 17 in the slot against the Rams, or week 18 or whatever in the slot against the Rams, and played it pretty well. So I can see him being that guy that's gonna get the slot. I gotta throw you a curveball because like I don't know. I know no one's gonna want to hear this, but I don't know if Jason Verrett is a lock to make the team, and so I think Jason Verrett and Diamador Lenore are gonna battle it out for one of those spots, bro. And I know people don't want to hear that, but it could be a possibility that those are the two that's gonna really battle it out. And depending on Jason Verrett's health or how they choose to do it, he might not make the squad initially because coming off the injury and then get stashed on a practice squad because they can put the veterans on the PS. So I don't think Verrett make the squad because just the way it's set up, it's just so
Right.
different.
No, I did put the caveat because I do think that Jason Verrett might be stashed on the PUP to start out the season and keep him till the second half of the season. And if that is the case, then they get to bring in two guys, right? See, I personally think that if he gets on the PUP list, I do think Darquez Denard makes the team, but I also think Dante Johnson makes the team. And the reason why is, once again, much like we talked about as far as what they're going to be looking for out of the sixth wide receiver, I think they're going to be looking for that same utility out of the cornerbacks, meaning somebody that could play special teams. And Dante Johnson is somebody who has shown the ability to play in the special teams wing. And he's also somebody that they can move all throughout the field. Like, he's played the slot at a high level. He's played outside corner at a high level. He's played, even safety. And maybe at high level is a little bit of a stretch, but decent level, right? So for somebody that's filling in, he's played well enough where he's not necessarily a weakness. He's somebody that could hold his own in those positions. And when you have somebody like that, much like Brunskill is on the offensive line, I think that the 49ers value somebody that they can move around into multiple positions. So let's say Jason Verrett does make it. It's only going to come down to one. Would you put in a Darquez Denard, or would you take a Dante Johnson that could play special teams and all around the field in the secondary?
See, I like your assessment on the Dante. It always gonna come down to like me personally, I would pick Dante because of the versatility, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm gonna go with. But I think it's gonna come down to what they kind of do in camp. Like, can Dante Johnson take it another step further? He's definitely a yes man. They say, "Yo, I need you to go play here." He'll do it to his best ability, and sometimes it works out for the greater good, right? And so I think Dante is always gonna have a spot on this roster at some point on this team. Same thing. I think Jordan Matthews finds a slot in the tight end room. I just feel like you want those super versatile guys. Also, veteran, you're getting that too, right? So I think I
Mm-hmm.
would go with Dante even over Darquez.
I like that. And, something that I actually learned off of, your nitty gritty podcast when you guys were going through, who you think makes the defense. You guys were talking about how, with the versatility and the depth of this cornerback room, we might be seeing nickel, dime, and quarter packages, right? So you guys were mentioning that the slot may not even come out of a guy like Samuel Womack or Darquez Denard or Dante Johnson. You think they're going to just use some of the talent, whether it be an Ambry Thomas or move a guy like Emmanuel Mosley, especially if Jason Verrett is healthy in there as well. Maybe even a Jason Verrett, I think, is who you listed on there if he's healthy. So can you talk a little bit about, to the people that are listening right now, the benefit
Yeah,
of bringing in all of these corners and playing them at the same time?
we were talking about running like a 3-3-5, right? It's like three linemen, three linebackers, and then five DBs, right? So that's your 11. And so now you got to think about the versatility of the DBs, right? Because no, they're not going to have five wide receivers out there on the field. But this is the cool thing about running the 3-3-5. You have so many different pieces, like a Tavarius Moore, who can play like that big nickel, or that can cover your tight ends, that can cover your running backs. And so this adds to the coverage for your team. Like it would be almost impossible to throw. Now, if there's teams that's gonna have like 5 wide receivers out there or whatever, then you're gonna want to switch to the faster guys. But I like this 3-3-5 type of look. You could rush 3 linemen. I feel like they could get home. You can drop 3 linebackers still who also play coverage and can stop the run. And it all comes down to the personnel that's on the field. So we won't ever see this unless they bring out 5 wide. Now, depending on the 5 wide they bring out, whether they're going to line up a tight end out there, if it's a guy like Travis Kelce, which I don't even think the Chiefs have 5 wideouts anymore to a certain status like they did. Not losing Tyreek Hill was a benefit for us. I know Travis Kelce is still a problem, but I would love to see this once or twice just to see how it fares, because look at the talent that we have in our DB room, and we want to see them all play. And the question is, like, when will we ever see them all play? And so Ambry Thomas, Tavarius Moore, Jimmy Ward, Talanoa Hufanga, who I think like can play pass just as well. There's going to be some guys out there that we're just going to not see play a lot. But again, that type of package depends on how the offense comes out there and lines up. You know what I mean?
Can you see a path to where maybe the 49ers carry more corners than the 6 that they usually carry?
Yeah, so every year it's a different position. One year it was the wide receivers. They had like 7 or 8. I can't remember. And then last year they went OD with the defensive linemen.
Defensive linemen.
And we're thinking they're going to do the same thing this year. But this year they might have better quality at the defensive line, so they might not carry as many. And this will be the cornerback room because there's a lot of guys they need to see develop, right? We still want to see what Tarvarius Moore can do. Right. So, he's coming in. You want to see Will back in coverage. You want to see Tariq Castro-Fields. Who's got this team? He's a draft pick. He's going to make this team. Like, they're like, that's another thing. Like, he was a draft pick, so he's got to make the squad. So, who's not making the squad? Like, draft picks make the squad. Like, they just automatically make it unless something freakishly happens. So, if I'm not mistaken, Tariq Castro-Fields was drafted. So, I think he's going to be on the squad. The question is Deommodore Lenoir going to make the squad? Like, so like,
I don't think he does. I think Lenoir is going to not make it. Yeah. And it's not because he's not a great player. It's just too many corners there, bro. There's too many bars, like they say in these rap battles, bro. It's too many bars. Like, you can't. There's too many. Like, how does he make it, bro? Who's he making it over? If Verrett's healthy, are you taking Lenoir or are you taking Verrett?
I told you, like, if Verrett's healthy, you got to take Verrett.
If Verrett's healthy, Wayne, he might be CB1, bro. Like, he might move Emmanuel Mosley to the bench, bro.
I listen. He might move Traverius Ward to the bench. Look, no, Traverius Ward's getting paid. No, seriously.
Yeah.
Like, I would take healthy Verrett over anybody. Like, that's me personally, because you saw what healthy Verrett was a lock. He was a lock. Like, they tried to throw on him and they didn't work. And that's what everybody kept saying. When this kid is healthy, he's a different monster. The only caveat is, can he find a way to stay healthy? And I think that's why they bolstered up the cornerback room. You sign this guy to a 1-year deal. You allow him to come back on his own terms. It's not like he has an injury like a D Ford where it's questionable to the career of the player. It's just ACS, just wear and tear. So at some point, like, he's gonna have another healthy year, and this probably will be it. And so you can ease him back in. He doesn't have to play every down because you got the depth to play. You know what I'm saying? So I like a healthy Verrett. There's no way Verrett doesn't make this team. It's just more like,
is he gonna be a starter, or is he gonna be healthy, or are they gonna stash him? I don't think they cut him. I think they either stash him on PUP or he's healthy and makes the roster.
Yeah, even if he's healthy, I don't think he starts, right? But that's the beauty of it. Mm-hmm. I think he understands that. His contract is saying that. And if I'm him, I wouldn't even want to start. I'm only getting paid, $4 million, if that. Don't start me, but when I come in, I ain't coming out. Like, I think that's that's the mindset. I'm hoping he has that mindset. If you put me in, it's a wrap. Just letting y'all
Right.
know. You know what I'm saying? But that's good for us, right? That's good for
Absolutely.
us because now we're stronger at that position. So
So last year, go ahead.
the
I'm sorry.
caveat is around Diamond. I just can't see him not making the squad. But now that I think about it, this room is deep.
Like, so let's talk about kind of what you mentioned. So last year, the defensive line, they carried 11 people. And the reason why they did that, right, is because they knew if they cut anybody and try to put them on the practice squad, they were going to get swooped up by other teams. Now, they have, I think, like 15 or 16 defensive linemen right now. So there's no way they're going to be able to carry all of them. Like, there's just no possibility unless they want absolutely nobody else on depth at any other position. But you're thinking maybe they don't even keep 11. They might even keep less than 11, you think?
It would have to be one less, right?
So maybe like 10. And then you think they
have,
add that to the cornerback room?
They add it to the cornerback room. Because remember, you didn't even talk about the linebacker room on this episode yet. And that's got to be what, 5?
5. Yeah, that's what they carried last year too. So that's pretty standard. They carry 5.
So let's go through those quick 5, right? Because we know the top 3, and then we're talking what, Oren
Well,
Burks
we know
and
4 because Oren
Demetrius
Burks has to make
Fowles.
it.
He
So
has
the
to
top
make it.
Oren Burks has to make it. So we know Aziz, Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw, Oren Burks. So it's really about the 5th. And I think there's Flanagan Fowles plus 2 rookies that are going to be in
two
training
undrafted
camp.
guys, right?
Yeah.
Like the kid from North Carolina and the other kid from I can't think of the school. And I heard he was having a great camp.
Yeah. But see, those are guys that you could maybe put on the practice squad and not lose, right? But I don't know.
I don't know. Cats be looking at the 49ers
That's true.
Squads, man. I don't know what it is about our team, but they be looking.
At certain positions, right? If a running back gets cut, they're going to get swooped. If a defensive lineman gets cut, they're going to get swooped. If a linebacker gets cut, they're going to get swooped because those are positions that the 49ers do really well at developing.
Correct.
But yeah, I mean, so let's say they do keep 10 linemen, which could be a possibility because I think they are healthier there than they were last season. So I think they had to carry more last season because there was just a lot more injuries, right? Nick Bosa was coming off of an injury, so you didn't know that. Kinlaw was still, in and out. And so now they have guys that are a little bit younger, healthier. So so they may carry 10. Let's just assume that they do, which means now they carry 7 corners. Let's assume Verrett's healthy. So we got Ward, Mosley, Verrett, Ambry Thomas, Samuel Womack. You're saying Tariq Castro-Fields has to be on the roster because he just got drafted. Wayne, from the people that I've seen that have seen Tariq Castro-Fields play, they're saying he's not looking very good. So
neither did Diamador Lenore.
Well, Diamador Lenore looked really good. Remember, he was looking good in training camp. That's the reason why he got on the field before Ambry.
He had to get extra work. He got extra attention. So if you read the stories, you'll hear whoever the cornerbacks coach was. They had asked. They was like, "How come y'all not giving Ambry Thomas like the same attention that you're giving Diamador Lenore?" And it was like, because he just got to figure it out, right?
Gotcha.
And so like they knew he was going to develop. It was just a matter of time. And he just needed the reps. But they worked with Diamador Lenore to kind of push him ahead. And you're right, he did get the reps before Ambry Thomas, but it didn't end well for him. I don't see how you regress that fast. That's weird. Like that was weird. And I don't know if it was because they were trying to convert him to inside to out, outside to in, whatever it was, or was there an injury? Whatever it was bad. And so you're right, Castro Fields. I just don't know. Do you not sign? But you signed him. Right. So Castro Fields was signed. So how does he not make the squad? Like I don't get it.
Yeah, I don't know how the rookie contracts work for the later rounds, if those contracts are fully guaranteed, or are they contracts that you can just cut without any ramifications. But let's just talk about it. So 7, right? We got 5 that I think both of us agree are for sure making the team. So the last 2, we got Denard, Tariq Castro Fields, Dante Johnson, Diamador Lenore. Out of those four, who are the two?
I think Castro Fields makes this squad somehow because he could also be utilized in the special teams.
Okay.
It's gonna come down to Denard and Johnson and Lenore. That's tough.
You just mentioned all of them.
That's tough. That's tough. That's hard.
So me personally, I would probably take Johnson and Denard, to be honest.
See, here's the thing. I think you take Lenore. All right, I got it. You take your young dudes and you stash the old dudes on the practice squad. Ain't nobody picking up Dante Johnson, and no one's gonna pick up Darquez Denard. Matter of fact, we picked him up. So those are the guys you can stash on your practice squad, and then you can call them up whenever you need me. They'll clear waivers. So that's got to be the move, only because of the new rules. You know what I'm saying? So, like, by the rules, by the NFLPA rules, by the rules, you can stash more vets. I believe how many vets you can put? 11 vets on your practice squad now, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm not sure about that, but I do remember they did extend how many people you could bring. I don't know the exact number, though.
Especially with the vets. So that's the key wording. It's like you can have more vets. So I think it's 11 vets, and it may be like 4 or 5 other, whatever. So, when we're talking about vets, we're talking about those players that accrued, have a certain amount of accrued seasons. Yeah. So I think with that specific situation, I think you could get away with stashing Denard, pray that he clears waivers, and then boom, you got him to your beck and call. You know what I'm saying? He's still gonna make his little money. He already signed his contract. And same thing with Dante Johnson. I think they're practice squad eligible. Oh no, Dante, we gotta check Johnson's accrued seasons, because after a certain amount of seasons, you can't. After a certain amount of starts, I'm sorry.
After a certain amount of starts, you kind of cut out. After a certain amount of starts, you can't what?
You can't be on the practice squad. So if he has, if Dante Johnson started a lot, he won't even be eligible for the practice squad.
Right.
So now you're going to have to put one of those dudes like Castro Fields. If he sucks, ain't nobody going to pick him up.
Right. Or Lenore. So maybe Lenore makes it to the practice squad.
I know for a fact, if he goes to the PS, somebody picking him up, and he going to ball out with that team.
Seattle, probably. They love picking people up that 49ers cut, right? Yeah, man, it's interesting though. I think it's a thing that's kind of going under the radar, Wayne. Like even you, who I know is thinking about the team a lot, you didn't even realize how much competition there's going to be for that last spot, right? There's going to be some good players that you're either on the practice squad that may be lost to the team, or I don't know. I could see both ways. I could see them stashing the veterans, like you said, because they're most likely not to get picked up by another team. But I could also see the 49ers thinking, like, why would we stash these guys when these are the guys that we'd actually want to play in the game, like week 1? You know what I mean? So it's going to be an interesting thing. And it's kind of like the first time the 49ers really had this situation, because they usually don't put this many assets into corners. You know what I mean? They usually don't have this much talent there. So it's going to be fun to watch as far as training camp. I wanted to ask you one thing, bro. We did talk about the running backs, right? And I've been putting these questions out on Twitter, right? And I think the 3 that I think the 49ers usually carry 5, one of them being Juszczyk. So that means 4 is going to be there. I think most of us are under the impression Elijah Mitchell, Trey Sermon, and TDP are going to be there. The 4th is going to be between Jeff Wilson Jr., Jordan Mason, and JaMychal Hasty. I personally think JaMychal Hasty is on the outside looking in. I don't think there's a path for him to make the team on the 53-man roster. So Jeff Wilson Jr. and Jordan Mason. Now, Jordan Mason is somebody who brings something different than the other 3 running backs that are on there. But so if he was to make it, Wayne, I was just thinking about that. I was like, wait a minute. So if they kept those 4, Elijah Mitchell, Trey Sermon, TDP, Jordan Mason, their running backs all are second year or rookies. Now, do you feel comfortable, or do you think even Kyle Shanahan would feel comfortable with that young of a running back room.
Yeah, because the first thing Kyle's probably looking forward to is durability, and you can't be that durable when you turn a certain age, and so Kyle did go younger, and that was probably one of the main reasons why we drafted another running back. What I think is gonna need to fit for Kyle's system is they got to be able to block. So pass protection is key. And if you ask yourself like it's going to come down to the kid from Georgia Tech, Jordan, and then it's going to come down to
Jeff
Jeff
Wilson,
Wilson
right?
Jr. And so, like, I'm going to take the best guy that can protect my quarterback. I think that's what it's going to come down to. Um, and then I think it's tough, right? Because if you put Jeff Wilson on the PS, which I don't know if he's eligible, but I think that's why we don't see. I'm telling you, Kyle Shanahan and that organization are geniuses, yo. Yo, how many times we screamed for Jeff Wilson to start or do this or do that, and they just wouldn't do it. And it all comes down to play like now. All right, so I could stash Jeff on the practice squad, you know what I'm saying? Because he doesn't have the accrued starts. And now if we have a solid back, I don't think they want Jermichael Hasty anymore. I think they're done with that project because they got Jordan. I like the kid Jordan from the kid from Georgia Tech. I really
Mm-hmm.
do. If you got to pick between one of the two, though, I would go with Jeff Wilson, right?
Really?
The
So
proven guy.
the only reason why I think maybe Jordan Mason has a chance, Wayne, is because Jeff Wilson Jr. is very similar as far as size, ability, and strengths to the other three running backs that would be on the roster. So at least Jordan Mason has a couple of things for him. He has more speed, right? So he would be a change of pace back that they wouldn't have in Jeff Wilson Jr. The other thing is he's pretty good at catching the ball out of the backfield, which is something that Anthony Lynn does like in his running back. So those are the two things that I think may give him an opportunity to make the roster. But for me, I do know that Kyle Shanahan doesn't enjoy playing a lot of rookies and young guys. So you would think that he'd want, a vet in the room, which is why maybe Jeff Wilson Jr. would make it. But I just don't know what Jeff Wilson Jr. is bringing more than Elijah Mitchell, Trey Sermon, or TDP.
Yeah, I think you want to know about his value. Like, what is his value now? Because before we had Elijah Mitchell, Jeff Wilson did bring that value of the pass catching out of the backfield. Remember, he caught that Jimmy Garoppolo high pass to the right and took it in for a touchdown. Then he had a big game, a couple seasons ago. It's just like now we've replenished. But here, like, I don't know. We don't have. I don't think we have an outside guy, and I think that's why you need Jordan, right? Because if we're still going to run the outside zone,
Right.
I'm not saying Elijah Mitchell can't do it, and I'm not saying he don't have that 4.3 speed. He's just slower at the 4.3 mark.
Right.
But Jordan Mason, he has a quicker burst. So you're right. I don't think the youth matters because Kyle broke that last year with Elijah Mitchell. Now, maybe Trey Sermon didn't get a lot of stuff because he couldn't pick up all the protections. But then, like I said, it comes down to which young player is most prepared. And you watch the 5th round draft pick or 6th round draft pick, start over a 3rd round draft pick because he was just more prepared and ready to go. If Anthony Lynn gives the green light on Jordan Mason, it's going to be a problem. So you're probably right. I don't think Kyle cares about the age so much as the difference. I think it comes down to what can you do at this age? Can you do this? Can you do this? Can you do this? Cool. And you're more durable and you're fresh. Cool. That's a bonus for Kyle Shanahan. And you're faster and you can get to the outside zone. That's a bonus because now you can switch outside to inside. So I actually like what you said, but I just don't see how Jeff Wilson doesn't make this team because
So Wayne, let me ask you this. So you did mention less defensive linemen, right? And we did add that extra person to the cornerback room. Do you think that extra player could be in the running back room so they can carry both Jordan and Jeff Wilson Jr.?
See, and like I said, every year is going to be a different position, bro. Kyle Shanahan got plagued with the running back injury bug last year. He might just want to say bump it because running backs is wear and tear. Like, you got to understand, like, Kyle Shanahan wants to do what first? Run the ball, right?
For sure.
So there's going to be times where you're not getting 5 or 6 yards of carry like Kyle wants. It's going to be -1, 2, 1, 0. It's the boom, boom, booms, right?
Right.
So you need more running backs. This could be that year where you take 6 and have Juszczyk as one. So you got 5 backs, 1 fullback. This could be
Yeah.
that year.
Could be because, yeah, especially off of what happened last year where they were kind of bringing people off the couch, to try to, they got Trent Cannon mid-season, and, they were bringing in guys that were just, not as good, and even the guys that they were playing were still nicked up. So I think that having at least always having the ability to play 3 fresh guys is going to probably be important, and having that 5th guy on the roster, maybe what they need to be able to do that. So yeah, I could see. I honestly could see them carrying an extra running back more than an extra corner, to be honest.
Yeah, same here. I mean, but that's some talent you letting go in that cornerback room. The 49ers are in. This is going to be the toughest 53-man roster. And what makes it funny is we don't even know if some of those guys is proven, but we just like what we got, right? We don't want to get rid of this guy. He a rookie. We ain't never seen him play. Yeah, but we can't get rid of him because when he do play, he going to be crazy electric, right? So
Right.
he's a playmaker. So it's going to be the toughest training camp, off-season, let go. Guys are going to get jobs in the NFL one way or another. When you come out of this organization, you're going to find your way onto another team, like Jermichael Hasty. Hey, and don't be surprised if they make a trade, too, because remember last year we had Jonas Griffith, as our linebacker. Then they traded him for, a 5th-round pick to
Right.
Denver, which is who we used to draft our 5th-round pick this year. So don't be surprised if there's a log jam and you see a running back go, like Jeff Wilson Jr.
Right. They've done it, right? They did it with Breida. Remember back after in the 2020
They
season,
traded
they
him to
traded him for
Miami.
like a 6th round. So, definitely that could be something where they maybe don't cut a guy, but they do trade him, get an asset. But I kind of I would feel better, I think, if they did keep 5, and Jeff Wilson and Jordan both made the team. I think that would be good because, obviously Elijah Mitchell did get injured last season. We don't want it to happen this year, but it's always a possibility. Trey Sermon got injured. I did want to talk to you about Trey Sermon because we talked before the state of the franchise, and we were kind of, is Trey Sermon going to make it? And then Kyle Shanahan came out in the state of the franchise and brought up Trey Sermon. So does that give you enough confidence that he is in the plans for the 49ers?
Yeah, I always thought Sermon was in the plans. It didn't make sense for him not to be in the plans. I think a lot of people were just more like, well, we drafted TDP. And I'm like, yeah, like, so? Like, how does that hurt Trey? Oh, well, Trey doesn't do this, Trey doesn't do that. No, I mean, he actually does. Like, when I go back and watch what he did last year, like the Seattle game let me know he could be a running back in the NFL. Like, if you go back and watch the Seattle game, we had about 80 rushing yards. He could have had like 200 rushing yards if Kyle Shanahan would just kept giving him the damn ball. But at the end of the day, I think Trey Sermon has what it takes. Did he have to grow up? Did he have to learn certain things? Absolutely. But like you said, there's certain positions and there's certain players that just don't have it. So Kyle will redshirt you your first year. You will come in here and learn the system. And that's the luxury that you have when you come into the 49ers. You're not going to get thrown into the wolves, right? You're going to get a chance
Mm-hmm.
to kind of get groomed by the wolves. And so it's kind of cool being a 49er because these young players don't have to come in and start right away and it be detrimental to their career. You know what I'm saying? Even if they drafted we drafted an offensive lineman, not to change the subject, with the 2nd-round pick, and he redshirted the whole year. Like,
Right.
what 2nd-round offensive linemen don't start right away? Why do you think we kept saying, is Aaron Banks a bust? Right? No, he wasn't a bust. He just was redshirted because we didn't need him at the time, so he can come and get acclimated to the system. I think that's what Trey Sermon had to do in the running back room. Why did Elijah Mitchell start over Trey Sermon? Because Elijah Mitchell had certain boxes checked off before Trey Sermon. So he went with the boxes checked off. He went with the most complete running back. And then you saw how Elijah Mitchell couldn't stay healthy. That's why he decided to gain some muscle mass and put on a little bit more weight, because he's like, yo, I got to take these hits. Yo, they hit a little different in the NFL. So
right.
I think Trey Sermon is going to be fine. I think Kyle Shanahan solidified that in the state of the franchise. I think as a fan base, you know, we tend to overanalyze certain situations. And like you said on the last episode, we get emotional. You know what I mean? And that's fair, because we're human beings. Humans get emotional just as well as other animals and things like that. But I think sometimes when we just kind of sit back and just let things grow and let things come to fruition, you know, you and I or regular people, we don't always see the vision or the big picture. We know the vision, but we're still not the visionary. And so,
Right.
like, Kyle Shanahan is the visionary. And so we just got to get along with the vision and just hopefully just wait for it to pan out and just know that it will. So that Super Bowl is coming very soon. It's just that Kyle just has to make sure he got all his pieces in play. I think Trey Sermon is one of those pieces, bro. That's why they spent a second round, but then the third round pick on him.
Third
Why
round.
they
Yep.
spent
Traded
and
up to
traded
get
up to
him.
get him. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I love it, Wayne, man. I'm gonna let you go, bro. I don't want you breaking too many of these traffic laws. You know how New Jersey popo are. They are you in Jersey or New York? Oh, you in Connecticut? Never mind. You in all kinds of stuff.
I'm in Connecticut.
Never mind. I don't know.
So it's a little
Yeah. I don't know what Connecticut's like, but I definitely want you to be safe, man. I really appreciate you joining in. Anything you need to plug before you bounce out of here?
Hey, man, just make sure you guys subscribe to his channel right now. Don't worry about me, man. Help my man So Real, baby. Let's go.
Wayne Breezy. Guys, we had a great show. Thank you so much to Wayne for jumping on. Guys, everybody in the comment sections, I know we didn't get to you that much this stream, but I didn't want to confuse Wayne too much while he's on the road and whatnot. But guys, like I always say, stay safe. Stay hydrated. Have a beautiful Monday, and we will talk again very, very soon. Have a great day, Wayne. Be safe out there, my brother.
All right, man. Peace out.